suffocated from the smoke and fell silent. Robby awoke. He shot to his feet as he quickly inspected surroundings, the whole dream fading rapidly from his easily distracted mind. But he immediately returned from worry to joy, violently wagging up to lick my face. I petted him and smiled at his dumb, loyal face that had long forgotten the dream. On the inside, however, what the hell had I just witnessed? Right then, I wished for nothing more than to verbally communicate with my dog. The device we had invented read minds, but it did little to translate it back to the animals. There were too many questions for me to even being. How did he even come up with her? I had Robby since he was nothing more than a tiny puppy, small enough to fire, death. These weren't concepts he should even, let alone have the ability to recreate in such an apocalyptic scene, and anything I'd ever experienced myself. After a short discussion with my colleagues, we decided to keep Robby at the lab for a few more nights, check if the dream was a one-time incident, or if there were thoughts and worries. Naturally loved the extra attention he received at the lab. Couldn't be happy. For the next, we kept him close, feeding him, making him feel spent time sleeping, while most of his dreams were exactly what one would expect from a dog, running through the woods, chasing butterflies, eating all the food in the world. About a third of his dreams were exactly like a post-apocalyptic wasteland filled with corpses and humans just rotting away on the already broken streets, surrounded by collapsed buildings, and a sky so consumed by smoke the sun was nothing. Some of the still standing buildings I could recognize. Robby hadn't even seen in his entire life, yet they were always in his dreams. Here's my own memories of them. He saw our apartment building, the park, the history museum, in search of any sentient life, but only came across bones, breeze, lifeless trees looming over the streets. Whatever had happened to the world, it had caused utter destruction beyond repair, and if humanity, they were nowhere to be seen. It wouldn't be until the fifth recording he finally came across a person, stumbling aimlessly through the ruins. He collapsed to the street before he had even noticed, and it quickly became apparent that he too was standing on death's doorstep. Robby wandered over and started licking the stranger's face, whimpering as it to wake him back up. His shirt had been torn, and a partially healed, severely infected wound covered most of his bloated abdomen. He briefly opened his eyes and smiled weakly at the friendly creature, there to see him off as he passed over to the other side. Once he let out, Robby lay down beside him and cried, left alone in a broken world. Days passed and we kept monitoring his dreams. The story they told was broken into different pieces and was hard to put together, or to understand them from a dog's point of view. They always displayed destruction, and Robby wandering through the lonely world, hopelessly searching for somebody he'd probably never find. Me. It would have been a terrible coincidence that my dog simply had the most creative imagination of any animal on the planet. I prayed that his dreams were mere fiction, rather than a look into our bleak future. But if the world he had dreamed wasn't real, then how could he invent real places he had never been? Once we'd been sufficiently horrified by Robby's unconscious mind, we decided to confirm our findings by monitoring other pets. A control group of animals from races in the country, all who had lived a long, happy life with their owners, safe from all the terrors in the world. We patiently waited as dog and cat owners signed up for the experiment, and while the pay wasn't all that great, they were more than excited to get acquainted with their loving pets' minds. After all, there wasn't any harm in the project, and there had been plenty of attention and food to compensate for the new environment. After we were monitoring both their waking and sleeping minds for a week, dreams and showed it to their owners after the fact to prevent them from being exposed to the nightmares that we had witnessed. Our plan was simple. If they had normal dreams, we'd just give them a copy of it on a USB stick, and if not, we'd blame it on equipment malfunction and pay them their fee, no harm done. Most of the animals showed little more than your average dog catching a stick or a cat playing with some yarn. As we got through the 5th, 6th, and even 7th subject without another incident, we almost allowed ourselves to fall back into blissful ignorance. But then, we saw another nightmare. It was a barren hellscape, devoid of any sentient life, just pets roaming the ruins, looking for anyone to keep them company at the end of the world. One cat dreamed of a minute society in the middle of a wasteland, just 20 or so people clinging on to life in the middle of an immense destruction, all looking and emaciated. Another dog saw dried out oceans, only occupied by the occasional corpse submerged in the few puddles remaining, searching for half-rotten fish and other dead animals it could feed off of. And then, against all odds, one found the half-burned remains of their former owner. We could recognize her face as one of the volunteers, twisted in an everlasting expression of agony and confusion. Whatever she had seen would remain a mystery. We ended the experiment there. Those lucky animals who had dreams were recorded and given to their owners. The rest were discarded, locked away on a hard drive to be kept hidden, as we apologized to the volunteers under the pretense of our equipment simply couldn't find anything. Let's just say machine malfunction, a popular excuse in the science community. Following the dreadfully successful experiment, we handed our recordings over to a more appropriate scientific group. Whether we discovered something about our near future or not, we needed people with better resources to deal with. A group called Artifacts quickly swooped in and took all of our equipment. With the exception of the first prototype, which I had brought home to calibrate months before the ordeal, I decided I would check Robby's dreams one last time before scrapping the device, hoping to find just another pleasant one I could keep as a memory. I fed him and he fell asleep in my lap wearing the Dreamweaver. Just like before, I was presented with another post-apocalyptic world. As the hellscape came into view, Robby frantically sniffed his way through several partially collapsed streets. He squeezed himself through a crack in a wall. A well-lived-in building, one that had since been abandoned and filled with empty cans of food and water bottles. In the corner by the entrance laid a man trapped under a slab. His lower body had been absolutely crushed, but he hadn't bled out, as the pressure kept him alive and breathing. "Hey, boy," the man uttered in a weak voice, followed by unintelligible human sounds Robby couldn't understand. He recognized the voice and immediately spurted over to the slowly dying man. In shock, I realized the broken man was myself, on the brink of death. "Robby, how did you find me?" I asked as I lifted my hand onto his head. He bit onto my sleeve and tried to pull me out from under the debris, not realizing that only in minutes I'd be dead. He whimpered as he heard me groan in pain, and despite his lack of understanding of death, he could tell I was suffering. Without any other options, he simply sat by my side as the stick kept burning, keeping me company during my final hour. I kept petting him until I drew a breath, but he remained by my side, even as I turned more than a limp pile of flesh, rid of any mind or soul. Then he awoke in a panic. One immediately softened as he found himself lying in my lap, back thinking it had all been a dream. A dream of death. When and however, dogs only live so long. They just remain in our lives the most loyal creatures in existence. Even as the world around them collides, they do their best to keep us because they love us. I hope this future can know that when my time comes, at least I won't be alone.